Hey, it's Curly. Or maybe not, since I don't have any curly hair or hair to begin with, so today I guess we'll just be Vanguard. I've been doing a lot of tutorial stuff on the channel for Vanguard 0, and I wanted to somewhat take a break from that because I didn't want this channel to be completely full of Vanguard 0 tutorials and guides and whatnot. But there is something that I've gotten a lot of questions about and I've wanted to cover for a while now, and we got some new information from the championships that happened over the weekend from the time that I'm recording this, and I figured now is a pretty good time to go over the super decks. So, what are super decks? Super decks are basically the equivalent to structure decks in Vanguard 0. In terms of actual pricing, they're super overpriced. I'll say this from the get-go, do not buy these with your actual physical money, right? As a new player, you should get 1 free token for being a new player. And in general, every single player got an additional super deck token. So as a new player, you should have 2 of these tokens that you can use, which means you can redeem them for any of these decks, either 2 of them or 1 of them. Ideally, for the most part, what you want to do is redeem them for just 1 deck. The reason being is that this isn't like a full structure deck, is more of how like sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh does structure decks where they kind of give you like 1 copy of each card that you need, but you kind of need to buy multiple copies of that structure deck to actually get the full deck, right, at its full power. This, you kind of need 2 of them, so it's kind of good that they give you 2 from the start. But what I wanted to do for this video is I wanted to just go through all of the super decks and sort of go over them and let you know whether or not you should get this one specifically or what reason you would need to get this one specifically, as well as my recommendations. And we'll also go over the new super decks that will be coming in the future towards the end of this, right, and my thoughts on those. In terms of my recommendation for which of these super decks you should get, let's go ahead and get that out of the way first. And we're just going to say the newest one, which is the Gear Chronicle one, is probably going to be your best bet. The reason for that is twofold. One, Gear Chronicle is really good. I shouldn't say twofold, it's maybe many-fold now that I think about it. It's a really good deck. Gear Chronicle is a really solid clan. It's receiving a lot of support constantly, pretty much every single set. And on top of that, it's the newest of the super decks, so it comes with some of the extra deck or the G-Zone cards, so you get more cards than any of the other super decks. And in general, the cards they actually give you are not that bad. They actually even give you a full set of the PG, which I don't think the other ones gave you that. I think they gave you like some of the new PGs and then some of the old PGs. Yeah. So there's 3 different types of PGs, or now there's actually 4. These are somewhat basically regarded as the best version of the PG, just because they can countercharge for you, and they automatically give you 4 of those, which is nice, whereas in the other super decks, you don't really get that. So I would say if you can spend your super decks on, or your tokens on anything, you can spend it on 2 of the Gear Chronicle deck, and you'll be good to go. You'll pretty much be set up until even right now, where I think about to hit set 7, like tomorrow or something like that, or Wednesday when this video comes out. And you'll still be, you know, pretty decent with this 1 deck. So before we continue with the rest of the older super decks, let's look at the new super or special super decks, or whatever the hell they want to call it for the G era. I think there's like G special decks. These were just recently announced, and these are amazing. There's just 2 caveats to this. If you as an existing player want to get this, or any player wants to get this paying money, it's going to cost you presumably roughly $70, which is fucking ridiculous for a digital card game, right? That being said, what you get out of it is amazing because it's a fully complete deck, including GRs, right? So this is amazing. Even if you have these cards already, $70 almost doesn't even seem that bad, just for all the materials you can get, specifically the GR materials, right? Pretty much gives you enough material to, I'm pretty sure, get maybe 2 GRs, assuming you have all of these cards already, right? Maybe even more than that. That being said, for new players, the other caveat is that you automatically get one of these for free, which is great. I don't know if we know yet, but for the existing players, I don't know if we actually get access to one of these, right? I just know that new players get one for free. So after you've gotten your Gear Chronicle deck from the super deck, from the recommendation, you can absolutely get this, and you'll probably be set for a very good while because this has all of the key pieces right now. It even gives you stuff that you had before, so you can probably maybe even get one copy of the previous one or no copies of the previous one, however you want to do it, because it just gives you everything in that one and more. Right, so this is an amazing deal right here. So please, if you're a new player, I don't know how to say this, but I guess just don't play yet. Wait until this comes out, or like start another new account or something like that, or just wait until we get more information on what they're going to do for existing players. I think it's like new and returning players. I might be wrong about that, where if you don't play the game for 100 days, you qualify to get the new token for this. I could be 100% wrong on this, right? I'm just thinking of what I think I saw. Which means you can theoretically stop playing right now and then start playing again when this is released, right? I think. But double check that yourself. But this is an amazing, absolutely amazing. Gives you pretty much everything you need. The only thing that it give you is another 2 of the grade 1 here. Other than that, would have been pretty good. Here, so you can actually put the cursor on so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So this is actually really good. This is amazing. Gives you literally everything that you need. Gives you 4 of the Chrono Jet, 2 of the next stage, 2 of the Pegasus. You're absolutely set with this. Next up, we've got the Neo Nature build, and it's more or less the same. If you want to play the best deck right now until it probably gets nerfed, pick this up. If you're a brand new player and you just want to win and get the best meta deck, pick this up. This is, even this specific build is everything that you'll need for this amazing deck. Bar none, this is all you'll need for that deck, and you'll be good to go. And this is absolutely crazy that they're giving this away. I have a feeling that they're probably going to end up nerfing this, but at the same time, they're charging people $70 for this. So I don't know how they're going to go with this. So I guess we're just going to have to deal with this deck running rampant for a long time, and also this deck running rampant to a massive extent, because a lot of new players are going to be able to play this. But just letting you know that this deck is by far the best deck that we have at the moment. And I think the best deck probably in the game's existence, maybe. Next up, we have here the Royal Paladin build, which is, again, really good. It was really unnecessary for them to give you 3 Blaster Blades, especially for new players. We already have 4 of those for free. That was kind of a downside. This is probably the worst one so far, ironically. But it does give you everything else that's pretty solid. It doesn't give you 2 4 slots, which is kind of lame, but it's fine. This is actually pretty bad. Actually not that great. It does give you this Alt Mile, which is decent, but you kind of need the other one as well as the Saint Blow and the Gab Blade and all that other stuff. So this is actually the worst one out of the ones we've seen so far. It is still really good. It gives you a lot of good stuff, but they could have done a lot better job with this. Give you a lot better stuff, because like the previous one is basically a full complete deck, as well as the Gear Chronicle one. You can just literally take that deck as they give it to you and just go to rank and play it. This one, not exactly, because you're sort of missing some pieces, so I'm not really sure why they decided to do that to you guys. Nonetheless, if you want to play War Paladins, definitely pick this up, but just know you're going to have to get a couple of other pieces as well. Next up, we've got Shadow Paladins here. They did a slightly better job here. They give you a bunch of triple rares in terms of the boss units, which is really good. They also gave you 3 in the main, which is really good. You got some of the spirits, these Stride Fighter PGs. This one's okay. You know, it's not as good as the first 2 that we saw, but it's definitely better than the Warrior Paladin one. If you want to play Revengers, you can kind of skip this, honestly. But if you're a new player, you might as well get it for free. But because it really just needs the strides, I think. I don't think anything else really helps you too much, except from maybe the strides and then the main is about it, and maybe the PGs. So you can get this. Swordbreaker is rare, so I'm not even going to consider that. Other than that, it's fine. Then we have the Gold Paladin one here. This one's interesting because it has support for Gurgrid and for Ezel, which is wild. And you kind of have everything you need for both decks to an extent. This gives you a good starting package. It's not a full deck. You definitely even shouldn't play this as a full deck, to be honest. But it does give you a really decent package for everything that Gurgrid or Ezel. Liberators, you're kind of asked out. But this is pretty solid. Pretty good. It's not a playable deck right from the box, but it does give you a great foundation for either Gurgrid or Ezel. Then we've got ourselves AngelFeather here. You do get 2 of the Raphael, which is really good, 2 of the Mikael, Uriel, which is really nice. You don't get the... They decided to give you the Break Ride instead of the other Celestial Legion, which is a bit unfortunate. So this one is alright. You can technically play this out of the box. It's not the best. It's not optimal, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You get 4 Harut, which is great. 2 no CLs only. So this one's okay. Better than the Warrior Paladin one. And it's definitely good if you want to play Angels. Definitely get this. Could have been a lot better. Next up, we've got Kagero here. It's a little less Blade Master focused and more Overlord focused, which is fine. Overlord does get a lot of support. The G-Zone is a little lacking. It does give you 2 Root Flare, which is nice, but everything else is kind of not great. I think Overlords are free. I'm not entirely sure about that. 3 of the Greats is nice, and 3 of the, I think the Legend, or whatever the new Overlord is called. There's too many of them to keep count. The 3 Neo Flames is nice as well. Everything else is kind of whatever, so this one's kind of meh. Better than Warrior Paladins, but maybe the second worst. I think it just, so far from the bottom, it goes Warrior Paladins, Kagero, and Shadows in terms of who's better or who's worse. You know, Royals being the worst at the moment. Next up, we've got Link Joker here. This actually gives you a really good Messiah package. You pretty much get everything you need, aside from maybe a big crunch, which would have been nice, but not exactly needed. You did get one of the Messiah strides. I don't know. This might be the first one, not the one that retires. They gave you 4 of the Fighters Collection one, which is a good stride, but you really don't need 4 of them. So the G-Zone could have been a little bit better, but it is a good, nice starting position. The grade 3s, they give you pretty much everything you need, which is really good. The grade 2s, they absolutely went bonkers on this and give you everything you need, even give you 4 resists, which is really good. So for Link Joker, perfect. Get this. This is very good. Better than Warrior Paladins. Next up, we've got Harry here. This one's actually really good. I don't know why they only gave you 2 of the Juggler, and they gave you 3 of the other guy, which is a bit questionable. But other than that, everything's actually really good. This is basically my grade 1 lineup anyways, so this is all actually really solid. For the G-Zone, they only gave you 2 of the Harry, which is fine. They didn't give you any of the Dragon, the Lunatic, which is questionable, and they gave you 3 mana, 3 Clifford, so it's a good starting point, but the GRs are definitely hard to get for this deck, so that's a bit disappointing. Everything else is really solid. Just the G-Zone could have been a little bit better, especially considering you look at the G-Zone for some of the other cards, but that's probably because a lot of their like triple rare strides are better than some of the other decks. So, without a doubt, if you want to play 0 and you just want a quick, easy, good deck, you pick up the Granblue one, you pick up the Asha one, or you pick up the Gear Chronicle one. This is probably the one that I would recommend you getting over those other 2 just because it is more fun. And this pretty much gives you the fullest package. You can kind of just play this right out the box. It really just gives you everything you need. You can definitely make some adjustments, but this is actually really solid in terms of super decks. The only adjustments I would make is just get rid of this grade 2 here at the end and swap it in for a common card, actually. 3 copies of that, and you'll actually be pretty solid with this. And obviously take out, play maybe some variation of this guy and this dragon as your draws, and then make the heals into heal guards. It's the same for all the other decks. This is actually really good. This is probably just under the Asha one. I would say this is probably the 3rd best one, just because, I mean, it's just the Asha one is just, you can play it out the box. That's why that one is so good. I think you can almost play this one out the box. That's why the Asha one was just a little bit better. Next up here, we actually have Bermuda. This doesn't give you the dual package in terms of the Rion and the PGs, so that's a bit unfortunate. And we get Loris, which is fine. We don't get any of the Nomio, which is kind of funny. They give you the other one. The strides are okay. You do get 2 Olivia, which is nice. So this one's just pretty mediocre. Like, it's not bad, but it's not amazing. They give you this grade 1 that no one plays. 3 copies of that, which is a bit disappointing, but maybe it becomes useful in the future. I don't know. I don't want to give Game Studio the benefit of the doubt, honestly. So this one's just fine. And the very last one we have here is actually the Aqua Force one, which is pretty interesting. The super deck for this, gives you 3 Basil, 2 Demontis. So 3 Basil, 2 Demontis, 2 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 If you want to play Aqua Force, get this one first, this special one. Don't get the previous one because you're really not going to use any of that stuff other than the stuff this gives you. This one on its own is fine. It doesn't give you 2 Lambroses, doesn't give you any of the dragon, which is a bit unfortunate, or Commander Tavas. Other than that, all the other cards are, useful, seen plays. You get 3 of the Adelaide. Everything else is really good. This one's actually also really solid. So overall, these G Super decks are amazing. The fact that it's $70 is unbearable, but for new players, this is a godsend. Putting that aside, let's go ahead and take a look at these in order, and I'll give you a sort of rough rating. Let's do, I don't know, I'm gonna go a little bit ad hoc here, but we'll give this a rating from like 1 out of 3, or 1 to 3, something like that, right? Right off the top here, we've got Knight of Magic Jewels, Royal Paladin. I've actually reviewed this twice on stream when it were first announced, and I don't believe much of my opinions has changed, but this is mainly focused around Jewel Knights. You don't necessarily play Jewel Knights right now in terms of what's currently being supported in the GR as of right now, right? There is a little bit of support, and you can kind of splash Jewel Knights with the current Royal Paladin support, but most of this stuff is relatively outdated. The only real good things from this are these 2 Ganselots here, right? The Blaster Blades, I believe you already get 4 of these for free. Everyone automatically gets 4 free Blaster Blades, so I was always really disappointed that they gave you 2 of these as opposed to literally anything else, right? There's even another triple rare that works well with this grade 3 here. They decided not to give it out for some reason. And then you also get the first PG and then the second version of the PG, right? While they all have their own uses, the fact that they only give you 2 of each is kind of annoying, but I guess it gives you a little variety, and you can always exchange these in the exchange with your Sentinel medals. So in general, I would say don't get this one unless you really, really, really need 2 Ganselots specifically, or 4 if you use all your tokens on it. But the fact that we have 2 Royal Paladin characters you can craft with, I don't think it's worth getting the super deck just for that, so do not get the Royal Paladin one. Next up here, we have the Tachikaze one. So this one's a little bit interesting because Tachikaze is an event clan, or was an event clan, and hasn't gotten support yet in the GR as of recording this video. Which means it's really difficult to get any of the cards because you can't craft them because there is no character to do the character fights with. You have a Tachikaze specific clan gacha that you can roll for, but you really don't have access to that as a new player because they give you like 100 free of the old gacha currency. As an existing player, there's really no easy way to get that stuff, right? Other than like just paying money to hit that gacha, which isn't really worth it. And this deck doesn't really help you out too much, to be honest. I'm not super well versed when it comes to Tachikaze, but the only useful things that you're really getting out of this are the Iguanaborg and the Dino Crowd, which might be really useful once this deck finally gets, or this clan gets supported in the near future. Most of these other cards here, I don't believe you'll necessarily need going further. You might need the Spinal Driver, I'm not entirely sure. So once again, skip this one out. There's really no real purpose to get it. Tachikaze is really somewhat difficult clan to even pilot right now just because it's so outdated and it doesn't even have some of the pieces that if you were to play Tachikaze, you would actually play. It's actually missing that stuff, this super deck. So skip this one as well. I guess I forgot to give it a rating. This one gets like without giving anything a 0, this is a 1. The Royal Paladin one is a 1 as well. Next up here, we have the Battling Sisters for Oracle Think Tank. This one's a little bit weird because you do get a bunch of Battle Sister support. Some of this stuff is actually still played to this day for Battle Sisters. And Battle Sisters, or I should say Oracle Think Tank, is an event clan, and it actually has 3 different ways to craft this. Because there's 3 different characters you can fight against to get the crafting material in one day, right? Plus, like I said, it was an event clan, so you actually got these for basically free recently. So if you got the pieces from, let's say, that event, you got the Battle Sister cards from that event that passed, should you get this? And for some reason you still have your super deck tokens, it's actually not that bad if you were to do that, because you do get the 2 Fromages, which are still used. You get a full playset of Monica, which is, decent. I don't know if she's used, but she's, a Battle Sister. We should have her as like or heal trigger, back when we didn't have heal guards, which is kind of how this is structured, by the way. You get the 2 Silent Tom, which is the best card in Oracle Think Tank, so that's really good. You don't have to craft for this. The Cocolet is actually really good still. That's still played. The Cocoa is still played, as well as the Chocolate is still played, this PG. So, if you're planning on playing Battle Sisters and you crafted for the, or not crafted, but you exchanged for the event that just passed, then I would say yes, you can actually get this one. If you missed that event, and you're just watching this now, and you're like, I don't know what event you're talking about, then unless you really want to play Oracle Think Tank, I wouldn't say you can get this. If you really, for some reason, like Oracle Think Tank, and you've never, you're a brand new player, you really like Oracle Think Tank, there's nothing against that. I will warn you, it is a more difficult clan to play, and it's not always as effective when it comes to winning. But it does give you 2 copies of your win condition in this super deck. So in that case, yes, you should definitely get this as well, right? So I'll give this one actually like a 2 out of 3. It's actually a decent one. Has some pretty decent pieces. Could be I don't know if it, comparing it to what they do, where it's like 2 copies of the main boss monster, 2 copies of the like pivotal pieces, stuff like that. I don't think they could have really done a better job. To be honest, I think this is actually one of the better structured ones, given the limitations of them only giving you like 2 copies of stuff. So this is actually a pretty good one. I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 3. Let's do that. Next up is Nubatama. So this is actually the same situation as Tachikaze, where it's an event clan from the past. Hasn't been supported yet. No way to craft materials because there's no character to fight against. Only can get it from the gacha. But this basically gives you all the cards you need for that deck. There's really not a lot of cards in that clan, to be honest. It's actually a pretty okay clan. There are a couple of pivotal pieces that you're gonna have to find a way to get, honestly, from like the clan gacha, or somehow crafting it from pulling the clan gacha a lot. But this does give you 4 of the PG, because they really don't have a lot of cards to give you, so they decided to give you 4 of the PG. This Dreadmaster is pretty good. The Fuki is pretty good. The Bear is really good. Pretty much all of these cards are good and are played in, present day Nubatama. So you're more than welcome to get this if you want to play Nubatama. If you in the future want to play Nubatama, you should get this, right? Well, maybe not. I don't know how much of these cards are actually going to be used in the future. But I guess if you want to start playing Nubatama by now, you should get it. Whether or not this is supported or most of these cards are played in the future, I don't know. We don't even know when this deck is going to get supported. So this is actually surprisingly a really solid one. It is missing some of the key pieces, so I will give this a 2 out of 3. But as a new player, I wouldn't recommend this. This deck is pretty difficult to pilot, pretty difficult to complete. This doesn't give you most of the main pieces. But if you really like Nubatama, you can go for it. And I do have a video where I've gone over all of the clans. You'll see that either in the iCard or in the description somewhere, end card, everywhere, where I just go over every single clan. I give you a basic build, and I just sort of explain how the deck works. So it gives you a better understanding of whether or not you want to play that clan in the future. So if you saw that and you like Nubatama, well, go ahead and go for it. This is actually a really solid super deck. So Shadow Paladins here. This actually gives you a pretty decent Revenger package, to be honest. Revengers were extremely good when they came out, and this basically has all the pieces you need for that. The only thing they're missing is the Legion, which is still pretty good, the Legion and the Legion Mate. So you would have to work towards that, but this is a clan that's 1, being currently supported in G, and 2, you have 2 different ways to craft at the moment, right? And if you were to spend both of your super deck tokens on this, you would actually be in a really good spot, because you will get 2 of the Durance, which are really good. You get, or so I should say 4 of the Durance if you spend 2. You get 4 of the Blasted Dark Revenger, which is one of the best cards for this deck for the most part. You'll get the Raging Form, which isn't really as great, but you will get the Mordred Phantom, which is still being played to this day. The Tartu is still being played as well, so you get a really nice little package here. You'll definitely need some stuff to update it and complete it, but it's definitely a good starting point. So whether you're a brand new player or a player that's played for a bit, any level of player, I think if you don't want the Gear Chronicle one, you can aim for the Revenger of Shadow, the Shadow Paladin super deck, and you'll be in a really good spot. I would probably have to give this, out of all all things considered, this is probably maybe like a 3 out of 3. This is actually a really solid package, considering that Revengers are still good to this day, and this gives you basically the core that you need in order to play that deck. Next up, we have Murakumo here, which is strange. This is an event clan that is now being supported, right? It wasn't an event clan before, and now in G it actually did get a event, and it got some new cards to play with. On top of that, it has a way to actually craft stuff, because you can actually face off against the character to get the crafting material. But when it comes to the super deck, in terms of the newer support that this deck got from the event, you don't really need any of these cards. Right? And presumably those are the cards, the G era cards, are the ones that are going to be supported in the future. It doesn't really need any of this stuff, so if you want to play Murakumo, you're probably not really in a great spot to get any of these cards. There is some support for the Magetsu Storm stuff, so if you just really like Magetsu Storm, you could try that out. In general, it seems like we're going to be going the Yashuya route, and that's what's really going to be supported in the future. So I would say really you can skip this one. Even if you like Murakumo, I probably wouldn't get this. In terms of actually rating it as a super deck, it's fine. But it's gonna get like a 1 out of 3. Like, it does give you PGs and stuff, and Shiryukis, some of the stuff that's hard to get, but just because it's hard to get doesn't make it good. Next up here, we have the Gold Paladin super deck, Liberator of Light. This one is somewhat similar to the Murakumo one, where it has a bunch of cards that aren't supported with the new Gold Paladin support at all. Most of it is relatively unplayable with the new support, because you need to have a Liberator to play these cards as your Vanguard. And if you're playing any of the newer cards, none of them are Liberators, right? Aside from like some of the few pieces of Liberator support that they've given out. So if you're planning on building present day Gold Paladins, do not get this, skip this. If you want to play past Gold Paladins with Liberators, specifically Liberators, not Ezel or anything else, it has to be specifically Liberators, then should you get this? Yes! This gives you a pretty decent package. It gives you your very, very important Blaster Blade Liberator. The deck needs this. It's like the main starting piece. It gives you 4 of the Ballin, right, which is really good. You need a lot of copies of that. It also gives you the Zenith, which is good. Having the Garmor is actually not half bad either. It doesn't give you the regular Cancelot, which is a bit of a, I won't say misplay, but it is a bit of a disappointment for this super deck, and I remember harping on that really hard when it first came out. But instead they give you this guy, which is actually better if you had the original Break Ride Cancelot. But nowadays I don't even know if that's even played, right? Since we don't really use Break Rides as often, aside from decks that just really need them. So if you, for some reason, don't want to play the newer Gold Paladin stuff, which is understandable because it might be expensive and you don't want to spend on GRs, and you would rather play Liberators, then yes, you should get this. If you just want to play Gold Paladins as a whole, I would say maybe skip this and try out some of the other more friendlier builds. The Ezo build is a little bit more player friendly just in terms of how many triple rares and stuff you need to get. Liberator is probably the most expensive build that you can build, not even just in terms of like money, but just all of the triple rares the deck needs, right, to make it actually work. As I've mentioned before, this was really easy for some of the veteran players because they gave out a lot of this stuff free in like rank seasons and, you know, rewards and stuff like that. So we got most of these triple rares for free. For newer players or returning players that skipped out on that, it's pretty rough for you to try and catch up. So I'll leave that to your discretion whether or not you want to play Liberators, because this is only for Liberators. If you don't want to play Liberators, don't get this. If you want to play Liberators, I guess you can get this. Overall, this probably gets, I guess I can give it a 2 out of 3. Like, it does give you the main pieces. Could have been a little bit better, but it could have been worse. Next up here, we got Spike Bros. Spike Bros is pretty interesting because your main pieces are actually like rares. Because you got the Reckless Express, the not the Panther, but the Devil Summoner, the Bracky. Those are pretty important pieces, but they're rares, and we just got the events for Spike Bros. So you can actually craft these pieces because you actually have a character to fight against. You couldn't do that before, so it's similar to all these other clans, right? And it does give you a lot of really good pieces, to be honest. The Bad Hand Dragger, very good card. The Dudley Emperor, very good card. The Jelly Beans is kind of a good card. We don't really use it anymore because we play Heel Guards instead, but even the Lucifer is a nice backup, right? So this is actually a really decent package considering. Spikes are in a weird spot. I don't know if I really want to speak on that, just because they're the news report is like okay, but you would rather just use the older support, to be honest. So if you really want to play Spike Bros, this is the super deck for you. It pretty much gives you the full thing. If you spend both your tokens on this, you'll be in a really good spot in order to play Spike Bros. If you don't want to play Spike Bros, you're not really going to get a lot of value on this, obviously. And I guess I can actually give this like a 3 out of 3. It's actually giving you the main pieces, right? Which I said like are the rares, so you don't have to craft those. It gives you 4 copies of them. If you get 2 of them, you might even get away with 1, and you can maybe craft the rest of it, right? But you do get the Paladin Dragger, which is pivotal. The Dudley, if you're not playing Rising Nova, which is pretty pivotal, but it's pretty good. The only thing it doesn't have is the Legion and the Legion Mate, which are also really good, so you don't have to craft for that. But this is actually a pretty good super deck. I think we're a little bit more than halfway done here. Next up we have the AngelFeather one. I remember being extremely disappointed with this one. Comparing it to the new support, right? The Gabriel build. This build does really nothing for you aside from give you Danielle's, right? That's really the only good thing about this. If you want to play the Celestial version, this build does really nothing for you other than give you Danielle, to be totally honest with you. We don't really play Zeratul anymore or the Break Ride. We just play all of the Legion leaders, right, and their Legion mates. Everything else is really not super useful anymore. It's kind of been power crept out. So this one's gonna get a 1 out of 3 on its own. And for anyone looking to play AngelFeather, I would not pick this up. I would rather, I mean, you can try it out, but I really don't think you're really going to get a lot of value either than the Danielle. So unless you only want to play AngelFeather, then yes, get 2 of these, get your 4 Danielles, and then build out the rest of it, right? If you don't, if you want to maybe play other stuff, and you kind of want to try AngelFeathers, I don't think this is the best way to do it right now. So maybe try something else and see if you can craft it or get some of the pieces, even though it is extremely hard to get. A lot of the pieces are like triple rare or higher. This deck doesn't really help you get there because it doesn't really have those pieces. So next up we have Granblue here, which is pretty interesting. Granblue is an amazing clan right now, one of the strongest. None of these cards in this deck are being used in the good Granblue deck. So if you want to play Granblue, don't pick this. This is not great. Like, had the support not come out, I would have said this is maybe like fine, right? But considering the support, this does nothing for the support aside from maybe you can play Night Mist if you really want to, and that's honestly about it. I'm not like a Granblue expert, but I'm pretty sure none of this is playable. I'm trying not to give anything a 0, but this is gonna be like a 1 out of 3. Do not get this one, no matter what. Just get. You can. The only argument I can give for this is if you already have most of these cards and you're trying to build the new Granblue deck, you can use this to get the materials. That's the only reason you would need to get this. That's it. Next up, we have here Regalia's Awakening for Genesis. So this one's an interesting one. So Genesis did get an event clan. It did get a bunch of G support. Its G support did include some Regalia stuff, but the newer sort of build for Fafnir doesn't really need any of these Regalia cards. The only thing it really needs is the Chamomile, which is a triple rare, and you do play some of the Hesperus and the Grappa, but they are rares, so not super hard to get. Other than that, you do play some Melissa, so you do play some of these pieces, but like in terms of the like higher rarity stuff aside from the Chamomile, you don't really need any of them. So if you need 4 Chamomile, you can get this. If you have a way to get Chamomile, you don't need Chamomile, and you're playing Fafnir, don't really get this. If you're playing specifically Minerva, you can get this. It'll work out really well for you. If you're playing any of the other Regalia builds, such as the Legion, I don't know if that's really going to work, again, unless you really need Chamomile. I'll give this one a 2 out of 3, because it does come up with the Chamomile, the Minerva, Angelica. You know, most of the main key pieces for the deck are here for any of the builds, right? By itself, it's actually pretty decent. You can actually build a pretty good Minerva deck. Whether or not that's what you want to do right now is a different question. So if you want to play the Minerva build, get 2 of these. If you want 4 Chamomile, get 2 of these. If not, you just want to play Gensis, definitely get 1 of these. I think I'll actually give this a 3 out of 3, all things considered. Then we have here the Malevolent Machine Insects from Mega Colony. This one's a bit interesting, because Mega Colony is going to receive support very soon. But my understanding is that none of this, I haven't really looked at the new cards that well myself. I don't think any of this stuff is actually supported, but this version of the deck actually plays extremely well, right? Without any of the support from the event that it's going to get, right? This version has actually been viable for a very long time thanks to a stride that they got in Fighters Collection, but it's not included in this. So considering the fact that you'll have to get the stride, is this pretty decent? Actually kind of is, because you do get 4 of the, if you spend 2 of them, you get 4 of the Warsicle and 4 of the Stag Beetle, which is all really good. You get the Poplio, which is also very good. You even get the Armored Beetle, which is solid, and you even get the Hornet, which is pretty good. The only things you're really missing are the Mosquito, which would be real good, as well as the 12k attacker, which is missing for this build for some reason. Decided to give you this card, which isn't as great. So if you really want to play bugs, this is a really good starting point. If you want to play machining bugs specifically, I should say, if you want to play the newer version with, I forgot his name. I want to say it's like Death Mask, but I'm just thinking of Saint Seiya. Yeah, I don't remember. If you want to play the newer build that's coming out, I'm pretty sure none of this is going to be useful for you. In general, on its own, I'll give this a 2 out of 3. It's pretty solid. You are going to need to get some other pieces to make the deck work, but this does give you a nice foundation. Alright, next up here we've got Kagero. This Kagero build, or super deck, is not good at all. It doesn't even give you Overlord. I believe you get some free copies of Overlord. I don't know if you actually get all 4 like you do Blaster Blade. But it doesn't really give you anything that's being used other than the Striking and the Bellicosity. That's really it. Everything else, and I guess maybe some builds might still use Gojo. Everything else is really not good unless you're specifically building these versions of Kagero, which don't really see a lot of play and haven't really been supported at all lately. So this is actually going to get a 1 out of 3. I would not really get unless you really need Striking, or you really want to play not you but Novell. That's really about it. Musketeers, huh? So this is for Neo Nectar. This is very similar to, I forgot who I said, Granblue, where Neo Nectar is amazing right now. It's undoubtedly the best deck in the game right now. This does not help you get there at all. None of these pieces are used in the good version of Neo Nectar, or not, I shouldn't say the good version, but the best version of Neo Nectar at this time, because it is the strongest deck at this time, right? If you want to play Musketeers, this gives you a decent base. You do get the Elvira and the Cecilia, which is used for some of the other cards, right? And you get a lot of the main Musketeer pieces. So if you really want to play Musketeers, you're going to probably need 4 of this. If you want to play Neo Nectar or anything else, don't get this. I'll give this one a 2 out of 3, I guess, because it does give you, well, I'll give it 1.5 out of 3, because you kind of need the Legion stuff, and it doesn't give you that. It just gives you mainly the grade 2s, and that's about it. Next up, we have Narukami here. So once again, Narukami is pretty good. This is Eradicators, which is different from the version that's being supported right now, which is Vanquisher. This actually did get supported recently in an event that just passed. So if you're building based off that, then yes, you need this deck, because it gives you stuff that is used in that with the new support, mainly the Gauntlet Buster. If you want to play Narukami, I don't think this is the best way to go. You're probably waiting for that event to start up again, or just grind it, because there's 2 different ways to craft for it, right? because some of these cards are Eradicator locked, so you have to have an Eradicator Vanguard. Not so much this, but this needs you to have an Eradicator Vanguard. This needs an Eradicator Vanguard. This is an Eradicator Vanguard. So unless you're playing specifically Eradicators, then you can get this. It gives you a pretty good base. Otherwise, you don't get this at all, and try and get the event that passed if you want to play Vanquisher. Strictly speaking, for Eradicators, it's actually really solid. I'll give it a 3 out of 3. For just Narukami as a whole, it gets like a 1 out of 3 because it's not really going to give you much. Alright, coming on to the final couple here, we've got Galaxy Warriors for Nova Grappler. Once again, outdated. The Victor stuff doesn't really use much of this stuff aside from the Anglet, but the Anglet's a common, so you can already craft this. Likewise with the Clay Doll, also a common, you can just craft it. If you want to play Blouse specifically, this does give you the full package. I guess also Victor can use the Yamato Drake, so that is good, you do get that. So I guess if you want to play Victor, you can get this, right? It does give you some of the more decent starting pieces that you can use. For the Blau build, it gives you everything that you need basically from this entire deck, right? Minus the Victor strides. So if you want to play Browse, 3 out of 3. If you want to play Victor, I guess it's a 2 out of 3. I was going to say 1 out of 3, but it does give you the Yamato Drake. So it's a 2 out of 3, pretty solid. If you just want to play Nova Grappler as a whole, technically this is good. It does give you the Clay Doll, the Anglet, the Yamato Drake, the Ethics Buster. It does give you some generic pieces that you can use. So in that case, I guess I also give that a 3 out of 3. Next up, we've got Dimension Police here with the Crimson Emperor. And this is going to be very similar to everything else where it's been supported in the GR, but it's completely different from what's been supported to an extent. They did get a really good Legion. And if you want to play with that new support, this doesn't even give you great Dayusha. So I don't think this is good even if you want to get the new support. I mean, it does give you some pieces for Dimension Police, but it doesn't really give you the pivotal ones because it's more focused on Great Tachikaze. So if you want to play Great Tachikaze, then you're set. If you want to play Dayusha specifically, you're kind of in a rough spot to an extent because it doesn't give you any of the 2 triple rare Dayushas, right? It does give you some of the supporting casts like the Kaiser, the Die Fighter, the Tech Heart. Not sure how much that was played anymore, and so on and so forth. So if you want to play DP in general, this is really good for you. If you want to play specifically Dayusha, this isn't as great. If you want to play the newer builds that are going to be coming out, this is really going to help you out either. I'm going to give this a 1 out of 3 just because it's Daikaiser based specifically. They could have made this a little bit more generic and they decided not to. Next up, we've got Blink Joker. This is focused on Chaos here, which did get some support just very recently. But it does have a couple of the generic cards. They're just not generically used anymore, right? Because this doesn't need specifics. This calls out a specific card, but your Vanguard doesn't really matter, right? So it does have some Star Raider specific stuff, but not super specific stuff that is still technically usable. It's just not being used over the other builds of Link Joker right now. So if you like Chaos, 100% get this. Without a doubt, get 2 of this. If you just like Link Joker as a whole, I can't really say any of these pieces are actually played to this day, right? In some of the newer builds, so I guess you can technically skip it unless you're a diehard Link Joker fan, and you can probably see some value in some of these cards in the future. Dark Irregulars here with the Demon of Ecstasy here. We're actually getting support for this in like 2 days. That support doesn't, this current build here does not get supported with those new cards. And this does give you a lot of key pieces. It gives you the Among engine, which is good. It doesn't give you the Legion leader. It gives you the Legion mate, which I guess is fine. You do get the Reiji, which is nice, and you get the Chariot, which is decent, right? And you get all of the Chariot forms, right? As well as the Dimension Crawler, and I said all the Among pieces, which is really solid. So, and also even gives you Grim the Reaper. So overall, for just Dark Irregulars in general, if you want to play Dark Irregulars as of right now, this gives you the core package, all of the cards that are relatively used, right, for whatever build. So it's a 3 out of 3 in that case. If you're trying to play the newer build that's dropping later this week, I don't think you want any of this because the only things you really need are the chariots, which 2 of them are commons. The last one is a triple rare, but to just get that for, you know, a triple rare, that's up to you. In general, I'll probably give this a 3 out of 3 because it just technically give you a lot of generic support, just being with the chariot, it's like Gwyn, the Amon stuff. That's basically every build right there covered. So it's alright. It's actually pretty solid. Dark Growlers, on the other hand, is a different story. Next, we've got the Pale Moon build here, Miracle of Acrobatics. This one sucks. You don't get a single copy of Lucier. You don't get any of the hairs that just came out. A majority of this stuff is useless for you going forward, aside from the Trapezist and probably the Dancing Princess. I guess you could argue Dreamy Fortress, maybe you can do some niche play with it. Everything else is really not usable, especially like in terms of boss units. That's really what you want to get, is your boss units and your key pieces. The only key piece you get out of this is Dancing Princess, which isn't really pivotal anymore. So for Pale Moon enthusiasts, I guess it's a 2 out of 3. You can probably find a way to work with it, but there's probably better ways to get what you need, I think. For just people that want to try out Pale Moon, I would just skip this out entirely and just try and get the newer support that just came out and mess around with that. Or just hit the gacha. You're probably better chance of getting Lucier and stuff like that to build you a more competent deck. Because this isn't even a full deck, this is kind of just random cards slapped together. And I might have mentioned it, but yeah, this gets like a 1 out of 3. Other than, you know, for Pale Moon enthusiasts, which I'll give it like a 2 out of 3. Next up, we've got Enchanting Diva, Bermuda Triangle here. Bermuda Triangle is in a really good spot right now, and this actually does give you a lot of their key cards that they need in the Rihon here, as well as the dual PGs, which is really solid, so you do get that. Other than that, it does support the mirror build, right? Which is good because you get some copies of the mirror that you use to break Ride over with. Other than that, everything else is kind of mediocre and not really played. So as a whole, I'll give it a 2 out of 3. For people that want to play Bermuda Triangle, I'll probably keep it at 2 out of 3 just because you only really get the Rihon and the PGs out of it, which is really only good for the dual PG recycle stuff, but you still need all the other main pieces, such as the strides and also more importantly, the legions, right? And all the legion mates. So it's fine. Got one of the last 2 decks here. We've got Bluestorm Void for Aqua Force. Much as I mentioned before, this is somewhat outdated. The Maelstrom stuff I might probably get supported in the future. But right now they have a different boss unit that doesn't use a lot of these pieces. It does use the Basil, which is good, as well as the Diamantes, so you can get this out of that. And that's kind of it, right? That's about it, unless, well, oh yeah, there's also the Argol. Keep clicking everywhere else except here. So you do get some of the key pieces that are being used today, not as many. So unless you really like Aqua Force, it's maybe like a 2 out of 3. If you don't like Aqua Force but want to try it, I guess you can still give this a shot, because Aqua Force is really hard to get. So this does give you a decent starting package of Maelstrom Storm, so you can try out the deck and get the general playstyle, but you will need to sort of upgrade it in the future with different pieces that are missing from this deck and that are just from a different archetype, right? So playing a completely different deck. Overall, I'll probably give this, I guess, a 2 out of 3. It does give you the Mantis Basil, which is by itself pretty solid. Then the last deck we've got here finally is Great Nature. Great Nature has not been in a very good spot in a very long time, and this deck, or the super deck, does not really help. It gives you the reverse Leopold, which is fine, but we kind of need copies of the original Leopold to make this work, specifically for a cross ride and with the strides and whatnot. The Polaris really isn't seen play anymore. The Break Ride doesn't really see play, the Chicken doesn't really see play current day, but you can still arguably use these pieces, so getting a good core of that is nice. The grade 2s, Great Nature doesn't really have the best grade 2s. It does give you the Binoculus Tiger, which is good, doesn't give you the Monocle one. You also get 4 of the Duckbill, which is decent, but this also doesn't have any of the new support from the event that passed, which most of those are way better than most of these cards here. So I'll probably, I guess, give this a 2 out of 3 considering, but I would argue you to maybe wait for the event to come out. Again, you'll probably get a lot better cards in this. Otherwise, you might just have to struggle a little bit. So I think that'll do it for this video. We've gone over the older super decks and the new super decks that are coming out. We don't really know when these super decks or special decks are going to be coming to the global side. My best get, considering that I believe this is coming out in June for the Japanese side, we're probably getting it September, August-ish. I'm assuming we actually do get it. You know, sometimes they like to vary what both sides get. Like, for example, in Global we have playmats. The JP side doesn't have playmats. But I think that's really all I have to say. Make sure you check out the video I did on the clan guide. I think that those pair of videos and this video go hand in hand, because it'll give you just a good understanding about what you spend your tokens on and what the clan you spend your token on is like, right? And vice versa. But until next time, take care of yourself, and hopefully I'll have more hair next time we talk.